Alright, we are playing some more SimCity 2000. And today I'm going to be playing the Portland scenario. In the near future, a previously unknown volcano erupts in downtown Portland, and you thought fires were bad. In the near future, a previously unknown hotbed of volcanic activity causes a volcano to erupt in the middle of Portland. You must put out the fires, clean up the mess, and rebuild Portland to a city population of 115,000 in 5 years to win this scenario. Let's go. The beautiful Pacific Northwest. Wait, what's happening? So yeah, volcano's gonna do its thing for a minute or two here, and all we can do is just sit back and watch. And once the volcano is done erupting, then I'm gonna pause the game immediately. But it's still doing its thing, so I have to wait. So for this scenario, we only have 5 years to reach our population goal. And we started around 102,000, but after the disaster, it can bottom out at about 90,000. So we are gonna need to do some zoning, put down some new zones, as well as redevelop some lower density zones to high density. Alright, we can finally pause the game. And let's have a look. Yes, it looks like we didn't get hit too much on this side at all. So your mileage may vary in terms of your playthrough of this scenario, and also looks like we could possibly save this rail station. But for other buildings that where it doesn't matter, I'm just gonna start bulldozing around the fires like we always do. And I'm gonna put a timestamp on the video here, just in case you want to skip ahead, because this can take several minutes. And if you see me do this once, you pretty much know what I'm going to do by now. I'm just going to bulldoze so that there's at least a 1-tile buffer in between the fire and anything else that can spread fire. So that includes buildings, roads, rubble, and yeah, once I bulldoze around all the fires, then we can unpause the game, and the fires will burn themselves out. But yeah, like I usually do, on this channel, I like to talk about what was Portland in the year 2001 like, and that always brings me to talk about the one thing that I know about, which is sports. So, of course, you have the Portland Trailblazers, and let's think about who the Blazers had in early 2000s. I think Rasheed Wallace was still there before he went to the Detroit Pistons and won the NBA championship. But I think in 2001 he may have still been a Blazer. And of course, being a Toronto basketball fan, who could forget Damon Stoudemire. And I think Stoudemire was on the Blazers still around 2001. I think he was, he was traded there in the late 90s, and he was there for, I want to say, for several years. One of the more interesting players who played on the Blazers in the late 90s and early 2000s was Arvydas Sabonis. And Sabonis, you might recognize his surname because his son, Domantas Sabonis, plays in the NBA. But his dad, Arvydas, was a very skilled, unique player, a center from Lithuania who was an excellent passer and really was dominant when he played in the 80s and early 90s. And by the time he came over to the NBA, you know what, I should be using, because I wanted to save this building. I thought this building looked cool, so I should be using my fire trucks like there. But yeah, when he came over to the NBA, it was like the mid 90s, and he was already in his 30s by then. So he had lost like some of his athleticism, but he was still like a pretty effective player when he came over to the NBA. And the Blazers had some good seasons in the late 90s and early 2000s. I think they made the Western Conference Finals, but of course the Lakers were just dominant. So even though they never made the NBA Finals, they had some pretty good teams. I know Scottie Pippen was there. I think Zach Randolph was there a bit later. I think his rookie year with the Blazers was like 2002, if not 2001. But my favorite all-time Blazer would have to be, and he came a bit later, and that was Brandon Roy. So if you know anything about Brandon Roy, or you followed NBA, in the past like 15, 20 years or so, you would remember that he was a phenomenal player, but his career ended because his knees gave out, basically. But while he was still around, he was a phenomenal guard. Okay, let's just do a lap around and send our fire trucks back to the train station here. See if we can save it. And then the rest of our fire trucks are here. Yeah. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to save both of these buildings, so we'll have to get rid of one. But that's alright. And I'll just finish up what I'm doing here. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to save this bridge, but we'll see. Alright. Just rotating the camera so I can see all the angles. And yeah, I think at this point it should be good to resume the simulation. So I'm going to unpause the game. And yeah, let's see if I can save this bridge. How are we doing over here? Yep. Looks like we can save this building. And it looks like the train station here was spared. So let's resume. Cool, alright. Yeah, so at this point, the fire will pretty much burn itself out, except, okay, over here I kind of missed that, so let's see if I can save the park. That should do it. There we go. And I'm just going to keep doing a lap around just to make sure that the fire doesn't spread. Because as you can see, it is, you know, it's pretty easy to miss. Yeah, like this spot here should definitely bulldoze. Trying to see what I'm doing. Might have to rotate the camera once or twice. Alright, and we'll unpause. So after we put out the fires, first thing what I'm going to do is, you see this stretch of highway was totally taken out by the volcano, so yeah, that highway is now toast. I'm going to rebuild this section around the volcano. And also, we're going to have to rebuild this railway, which shouldn't be too bad, as well as here. And I think I'm going to build a rail bridge as well. And I think there used to be a highway bridge here. But I think we might need to sacrifice that bridge because, yeah, this stretch of highway, like I said before, is toast. And speaking of toast, looks like I didn't bulldoze this right. So I'm going to have to go around it again. And if you skipped ahead, that's fine, but if you're still watching this, I apologize because I thought that I'd bulldoze around everything. But I guess I was too busy talking about basketball to really be paying attention. Okay, that should be fine. And yeah, just gonna start bulldozing the rubble, since we will need to anyway. So that we can see what was once there. You can still see the footprints of the zones and where the roads used to be. So bulldozing the rubble makes it easier because you're uncovering what used to be there. Alright, have a look on this side. Yep, the fire's look to be burning themselves out. And this side seems to be under control now. But you know what? I'm going to leave that in because it's good to show what can happen when you don't bulldoze around all the fire. Let's speed things up just a bit. So this side is almost out. And I'm going to start dispatching some fire crews over here just to speed things up. That works much faster. But we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Since we only have 6 fire stations, we only have 6 fire trucks available. Because that's how this works in this game. Video game logic, am I right? And as we put out the last of the fires, we remember, we see this volcano as a stark reminder of, well, really the power of Mother Nature. And some people who play this this scenario, they will take out a bunch of loans, and with all that money they'll terraform the volcano and flatten it so like it was never there. But I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna build around it. It'll stay there and serve as a monument, if you will. So yeah, our first message here: industry needs connections, but we'll come back to that. We'll take care of that. But first, I do want to rebuild this stretch of highway. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna build around the volcano because it can be really expensive to flatten. Whoops. I just destroyed a bridge that I didn't mean to. There. Pretend that never happened. Okay. Yeah, it can get really expensive if you want to level that much terrain, so we'll just build around it instead. Okay, thought I selected level terrain. There we go. Did I not select it? Okay, that should work. So yeah, just as an example, check out how much it costs to level this terrain right here. So it costs a lot more than $25 because you're not just leveling one square, you're basically leveling this whole hill face. Okay, let's see. What do I want to do next? Yeah, I'll try to fill in this trench here. Should make it easier to construct the highway. little bit more. So it's already costing me thousands just to carve out enough space here. So we are going to take out one loan. And like I said, I try not to, I try not to play these scenarios by, just taking out unlimited loans, completing the objectives, and then leaving the city in like a whole bunch of debt. That's not how I want to do things. So my strategy I will always attempt to take out as few loans as possible. Alright, we're almost done here. Didn't mean to destroy that. Well, you've already seen me do that once today, so it doesn't matter if I do it again. These accidents do happen. Oh, there goes the building I was trying to save. The cool building. I wish it was like, I think in SimCity 3000, you can make a building like a heritage building. There's an option to make it historical. And if you do that, then you can't bulldoze it. The game won't let you bulldoze it. So even if you have the bulldozer tool and you click on it, it won't bulldoze the historical building. There we go. And while we're at it, might as well rebuild some of these roads here. And I can kind of see where they were. So we'll just follow the pattern like that. There's a road here. And here as well. May as well build a couple of ramps here. Switch back to roads and might as well finish rezoning as well while we're at it. And once this area is finished, then we'll move to the next, which is on the other side of the volcano. So we're going to have to make sure that power is restored, rebuild some railway, and yeah, that should do it. Fill in any gaps if you can. Alright, that should be good. Now, working our way around the volcano. rebuild the roads. And the power lines. Just like that. Looks like there was a road here. As well as here. Alright, cool. Gonna have to restore power. And rebuild this road. And like that. Alright, that should do it. And taking a look at this side, barely any damage, but I am going to rebuild the railway in its original place. And yeah, we're gonna have to rebuild this section. I almost forgot. And might as well take out that rail. It's no longer needed. And we can replace that with some dense industrial. And we'll just take out this section of the highway as it's no longer needed. The highway will stop right there with these off-ramps. So sometimes you gotta make sacrifices like that, but this highway comes into the city and ends right there. I think that's fine. We'll just fill in some of the gaps there with some dense zones. And bring power where it's needed. Okay, cool. So at this point, oh right, there's one more thing. Since we lost our highway bridge here that used to be here, I do want to build a rail bridge. So I'm just going to decide which part of the river do I want to build that. And I think I'm going to build it right here. Yes. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, cool. Let's resume. And the first thing that pops up, industry needs connections. Let's go back to that highway, and we'll build a connection here. And yeah, we can see that there's a few zones that where the power was knocked out. So now, when when you resume the game, you can actually see which areas need power to be restored. Here as well. Okay. And taking a look at our population, like I said before, it will bottom out close to 90,000. And we do have to build it back up and then some. So I'm going to need to go up to 115,000 to complete the scenario. And yeah, like I said earlier, the way we do that, well, it's two strategies really. One is to zone on unused land and to develop new zones on unused lands. And the other strategy, which we are going to make use of, is to redevelop some low density zones, since there isn't enough unused land to just develop alone. You also need to do some redevelopment as well. But for now, we'll take a look at our budget screen here, and I do want to lower taxes because that will help to spur growth. So I'm going to go all the way down to 4% here, and just to make sure that we are turning a profit, I'm going to bring in some more revenue by legalizing gambling. And we'll just enable another city service. And since crime is at an all-time low, we can slash the police budget. Looks like we need more fire coverage and also another school. So that's actually the first thing I'm going to do right now. Take a look at our fire coverage map. And it looks like we can use a fire station, well, really where the volcano was. But we'll build one. Yeah, let's build one here. Alright. And let's see, where will we build a school? Take a look at our map. Switch to the schools layer. And again, looks like we can use one right around here somewhere. And I'm thinking we can build one here. And since we're starting to develop Irving Park here, might as well make use of some more of this prime real estate. That should be more than enough. Now, there's a couple places where we can start to redevelop. And I like to focus on this part of town here, because as you can see, this is predominantly low density zones. And of course, there are a few zones that need power that don't have it, so we'll just hook that up real quick. And might as well fix this up. And we'll build dense residential where we can. And light is fine for the rest. And if it's only one tile wide, then there's no point of zoning dense, because it needs to be at least 2 by 2. So there's really no point to spend twice as much on dense zones. But in this case, it looks like we could use some dense zones there. And we'll probably come back to some of these areas just to fill in the gaps like that. But I do want to concentrate on this part of town. And I think I'm going to put a timestamp here just because it's going to take me several minutes just to bulldoze all of these blocks and then rezone them. So if you want to skip ahead, put a timestamp here, and feel free to skip ahead when I should be done redeveloping, or rezoning rather, all these areas. If you've stuck around, thank you for sticking around and watching me rebuild this entire city. Put a gas station there and a 7-Eleven there. And I'm gonna focus on the blocks that are like grids. I'm not gonna focus on these ones with the diagonal roads because it's a little more tricky to bulldoze when it's just a block like that. I feel like I'm less likely to make a mistake. So. And we are going to have to restore power. So before I restart things, before I restart the simulation, I will rebuild power lines. Not only will that restore power, but it will help these zones redevelop faster. So this one was a mixed block of commercial and residential, and I do like to maintain that, but I'll just increase the density of both. And yeah, I'm probably gonna just do this all in one fell swoop. And like I said, it's gonna take some time, but once we've done this, then we don't have to worry for the rest of the scenario. We can kind of just wait for everything to take shape. Zone some of these parklands, of course, ignoring the little corner pieces because we can't zone dense there anyway. Well, we can, but there isn't a point. But the first thing I should mention when we resume the simulation is that we're going to experience a population dip just because I destroyed all of these buildings. But there will be a dip followed by recovery, and then of course the population will increase more than it was before once the dense zones develop. So, yeah, in short, it'll go down before it goes back up, and then some. And yeah, just looking at city blocks that are mostly square. Those are the ones that I'm redeveloping. They're just easier to work with, is all. But feel free to do as you like. I like to use these square blocks as a starting point. So I mentioned that this is the first strategy. The second strategy is to develop on lands that haven't been developed, that are just completely undeveloped. And it's a good strategy, but the problem is that this map is mostly already developed. There is a part of the city where it's like hilly terrain, and it's relatively undeveloped. So we can definitely use the land there. It's not going to increase our population enough. So it's good. It'll be good to supplement what I'm doing here. It'll supplement all the redevelopment that I'm doing here, but by itself, it wouldn't be enough. And some people, I think they don't like working with hilly terrain. It can be challenging, but I actually enjoy it. I think it looks cool when it's developed and hilly neighborhoods develop, and I think they look nice. It breaks up the kind of monotony of like grid pattern streets and blocks like this. So yeah, those are some of the maps that I enjoy playing on the most, are the maps with the hilly terrain, as well as I really do enjoy the maps that are like that have a lot of water, that are like island maps, where the city is like a chain of islands connected by a bunch of bridges. I think that's really cool. Or like an archipelago sort of map, where it's like more than 50% water. I enjoy building on those sort of maps, even though you can't build, your city won't have a very big population, but when it's done, your city will look, it has the potential to look really cool. So those have always been my favorite sort of maps in this game. There's a lot of variation in a 256 by 256 grid, which is the size of the maps in this game. Alright, we've done about, let's see, that's about half of what I want to do, and then I'll do some of this area as well. So we're almost half complete, I would say. And yeah, once that's done, I think that's it. Like, that's all you have to do. That's all the redevelopment that you have to do. It's just a matter of resuming the game, unpausing the game, and just watching your population, pretty much. But yeah, I am going to develop some of the on the other side of the city is where like the hilly terrain is. So I am going to develop some of those areas as well. And while I'm doing this, I guess I could talk about how I've always wanted to go to Portland. I do live in the Pacific Northwest, and I've been to Seattle, and I really liked Seattle. I went to a Seattle Mariners game for my first time ever, and ever since I moved out here to the West Coast, I always wanted to go to a Mariners game. So this year, I finally had my chance, and I went to a Mariners game. And but I've always wanted to go to Portland. And speaking of baseball and speaking of Portland, if you're into that sort of thing, there's a great documentary called The Battered Bastards of Baseball. And it's about this team in the 1970s. And they were a minor league baseball team in Portland. They were called the Portland Mavericks. And the Mavericks were an interesting team because they were one of the last, if not the last, unaffiliated minor league baseball team. So, in minor league baseball, you have all the teams nowadays, at least, and most of the teams then, were affiliates of major league baseball teams. They're like farm teams, basically. But unaffiliated teams were just like independent. They played in the same division as the minor league affiliate teams. So they played in the same division, so they would play against like all the, the prospects who were signed or drafted by the big league organizations. But they were just not affiliated with any big league organization. So that's something that you don't see anymore, and it's a really cool documentary. Highly recommend. The Battered Bastards of Baseball. Yeah, without spoiling too much, one of the interesting things about the Portland Mavericks team was that they were owned by Bing Russell, who was an actor. He was a Hollywood actor, and his son was Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell of Escape from New York, Kurt Russell, right? And Kurt Russell was actually a pretty decent minor league ball player at the time, and he played for the Portland Mavericks for I think a couple of seasons, and he was actually a pretty decent ball player until I think he tore his rotator cuff or something and took up acting full time. So I'm just rebuilding the power lines as I go, because that does make it redevelop faster. I'd say we're about 75% done here. And at times like this, I wish that this game had, instead of only being able to bulldoze a tile at a time, I wish you could, like how you can click and drag zones, I wish you could click and drag an area that you want to bulldoze. So, I know that this game is already over 30 years old, so I'm not going to hold my breath to and expect that somebody is going to add that feature into this game. And speaking of games that are 30 years old, as of this month, possibly my favorite game of all time, which is Doom, classic Doom, turned 30 this month. Yes, it's been 30 years since Doom 1, Doom 1.0, was released. So I've been playing a lot of Doom this month. And if you're familiar at all with the Doom community, there are so much custom mods for the game that it never gets old. There's always something new. And that's what's really kept it fresh over the last 30 years. So credit to the developers for making a game that stood the test of time, and it was also helped by the fact that they really promoted the ability for modders to create new content. They were really open source advocates, which is something that you don't really see in the gaming industry. You don't see that too much nowadays. And if you hear barking, that is courtesy of a dog outside my apartment. There is a path where people often walk their dogs, and so that is what, without looking out the window, I can already assume that that is the source of the barking. So I think we're like 90% done here. Just gonna rezone a couple more blocks. And by a couple, I mean like 5 more. And I like the mix of residential and commercial, so I'm gonna maintain that. But it looks like we're out of money, so I'm going to take that loan that I was talking about. So we'll take out our one and only loan. And we'll continue doing what we're doing. Alright, just a few more blocks. I think we can be done with this part of the scenario. So yeah, once I'm done all this rezoning, I'm just gonna zoom out, and for people who who decided to skip ahead, they'll be able to see pretty much like the after product of all the work. All right, this is it. And I'm just clearing the rubble. You don't necessarily have to, but just for the sake of demonstration, I do want to show what this all looks like when we zoom out. So we'll just rebuild power lines. And yeah, if you're coming back to this video at this point, then you can see all of the zones that we redeveloped. And I forgot to rezone those ones, but that's super easy now that we've bulldozed everything. Okay. Now, start the simulation. And after a couple months, I'm going to look at the population. So we can see that even though the population will bottom out since I destroyed many blocks of buildings. So the population is going to bottom out, but then it's going to go back up. And now that we've replaced those buildings with dense or high density zones, then we'll be able to make up for it and get closer to our population goal. Alright, take a look at our population, and yes, we are at 88,000, but this should account for at least a good 15,000 residents. So at this point, I do want to focus on the other side of the map, and let's take a look at this Portland Heights area here. Now, this is the hilly terrain in Kings Heights. This is the hilly terrain that I was talking about, where there is some land that can be developed, but if I were only to develop on this on these hills here, it wouldn't be enough to complete the scenario. So that's why I did the redevelopment, the rezoning first, and now I can turn my attention to zoning these hills, because it will help. So the first thing I'm going to do is just focus my attention on all of these little gaps here, and anywhere where it's at least 2 by 2 where I can put dense zones, then I will do so. Otherwise, light will be good enough. Of course, there are some zones already that don't have power, so I'm going to build some power lines. Just like that. And of course, you remember this highway from before. Well, this whole highway, this whole valley here, this whole highway corridor, this is good land to develop as well. So I am going to be making use of the land on either side of the highway. Now we're almost at the end of 2002 here. So we'll take a look at our budget screen. And it looks like we are losing money, but I'm not too concerned. And the reason why is because when that whole other side of the city that we redeveloped, that's still going to still going to need some time to build back up. And once that builds back up, then it will generate more revenue. So in the meantime, I'm just going to have a look at my advisors just to see if we need anything, any civic buildings, any services, and it looks like everyone is at least adequately happy right now, so we can continue to zone this area. And yeah, it looks like our population has gone back up. Remember, we were at 88,000. So it looks like we bottomed out at 88,000, and it should only be up from here. Now I do want to use this land here, so I'm just going to rebuild this section of highway. And build a road going under the highway like that. So now we can zone dense residential. And of course there's more space over here. And I like to build a couple parks here and there. And of course, it's always a good idea to sprinkle in a mix of zones whenever you're building or adding zones like I'm doing. It's always good to sprinkle in a bit of commercial. Like I'm doing here. Just like that. And of course, wherever I can, I'm always going to put dense zones, wherever I can. And yeah, this part can get kind of granular. Like I'm being really fine with like how I use this land. But you are going to need to make use of this land. Even if you redevelop as much as I did on the other side of the city, you're still going to need to develop new zones over here. Okay. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish zoning this area that I talked about next to the highway. course, a little sprinkling of commercial. And change that to a park. And making sure that I get power to all sides of my new zones, because that way they will develop that much faster. Alright, still seeing some gaps, some little parcels of land here that I can use, so I'm going to use them. Okay, back over here. Let's finish our new neighborhood over here. And the reason I put light density at the edge of the map like this is because the game will not develop dense buildings on the edge of the map. So there's no point in putting down dense zones on the very edge. Alright, things are starting to take shape. Do something like that. And before I forget, let's build an on-ramp here and on the other side as well. So I'm going to need to reroute some of my power lines, but that's okay. It's easier to do it now than later when everything is already developed. And let's build one more on-ramp here. And build a little strip mall here. And the rest will be residential. Perfect. Yeah, that should do it. Let's unpause the game. And I'm seeing a zone that I didn't power. There we go. And we'll just go ahead to, we'll go ahead half a year, so July 2003. And as you may remember, there isn't a whole lot of time to complete the scenario. You only get 5 years, so We started in July 2001, so you only get until July of 2006. Got a power situation over here. That can be easily solved. Alright, that should take care of that. Actually, I didn't see where the actual disconnect was, so now it should be good. And yeah, we're in July of 2003. Let's see how we're doing with our redevelopment. So the rebuild is well underway here. We can still see large sections of zones that are still under construction. And what that means is that our population will continue to grow. So we're at 99,000 now, but I think we will be well over 100,000 by the end of 2003. So let's go ahead to the end of the year, and I just see some land here next to the highway, which can be used. There we go. And there's some more on this side. The alpacas. Never heard of them, but apparently they're doing pretty well this year. And yeah, wherever I see areas where I can lay down dense zones, then that's what I'm going to do. And I'll leave a little bit of space, for example here, I'll leave a little bit of this parkland. And of course, this can't become dense zones, so I won't bother. But this can. Alright, we're at year's end, going into January of 2004. And I just want to see if any of my advisors here are asking for more services, but looks like we're good. Taking a look at our population, we're at 103,620. as you can see, just going around the map, seeing where I can, anywhere where I can put more zones, just filling in all the little parcels of unused land. This area is taking shape quite nicely. And yeah, as I was saying before, it's a little bit more challenging to develop. It takes more time. It takes a lot more careful planning, and you have to put more thought into it. But once you do, it looks a lot nicer. I really do dig the hill faces with the trees. I think it gives a lot of nice green, like it gives it a nice green character to these Portland Heights and Kings Heights neighborhoods. So, good stuff. So I just saw that message, water shortage reported. That just popped up, so we are going to take care of that. But that can only be a good thing, because that means our city, our population, is increasing. So, of course, our demand for water is also increasing. So I'm going to go take care of that. Yeah, we'll take a look over here, and we're not going to need too many more water pumps. And just making sure that they're connected to power and also connected to the water grid, which it looks like they already are, so we're in good shape. But I don't think we're going to need too many more water pumps. We'll just build maybe a few more around this rail station. And yeah, they're mostly already connected. For this scenario, I'm not really going to bother with the water grid too much, because this video is already, let's see, how long I've been recording for? Well over an hour. So this message should go away. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue to develop on areas like this. Might have to wait for more money to come in, and that'll give us a chance to look at our population. We're up to 109,410 with under 2 years remaining. So this will also be a good time to, when the budget window pops up, we'll be able to see if our increased population is turning into increased tax revenue. That explosion reminded me of something I should have done a lot long ago, which is to turn off disasters. Because for the sake of this video, I don't want to be dealing with that stuff. This is just to show my strategy on how to complete this scenario. So we're still in the red. I'm gonna just enact a few of these annoying ordinances that nobody likes, but boy do they generate a lot of revenue. And it looks like we are in need of more fire departments in schools, but that's gonna have to wait until next year, or if there is no next year, which at this rate the population is growing, we could complete the scenario any month now. We're just under 2,000. Yeah, pretty close to our goal. All right. That should do it. Since we're not gonna go past another year anyway, just lower the taxes all the way. Raise the police budget back up, and we'll disable these revenue generating ordinances. And there it is. That's Portland. If you have stuck around till the end of this video, I do thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.